Ever have trouble following through on a resolution or making good on a commitment, especially a commitment to yourself? When trying to make significant changes in our lives, it's important to have a clear vision of what it is we're trying to create. But it turns out there's something even more important than what we want to create, and that's why we want to create it. Hi, I'm Coach Dave. I'm an independent OPTAVIA health coach. OPTAVIA! And I've been helping people safely lose weight physically and mentally for over 10 years. So why the why? What is so important about our why? Turns out our why is connected to our motivation.
Excuse me, what's my motivation?
Think of it like cement. I'm sure you've seen cement trucks before, maybe even when they're pouring out that concrete that they're carrying. Say someone is building a house and they need a firm foundation to build on. Well, what do they use? Usually they use concrete. Concrete has three main ingredients: gravel, water, and cement. The cement is that gray powdery stuff. You can get it in sacks at Home Depot. And when you mix it with gravel and water, it serves as a binder or like glue, and it holds the whole thing together as it cures. Without cement, all you have is water and gravel, and you can't really build much on that. So our motivation is like that foundation, and our why is like the cement that holds the whole thing together. Without a clear why, motivation is weak and fleeting, and it's not going to hold when the storms of life blow in. But when you add the why, the cement in our illustration here, then the foundation is firm and the house will stand. So how do we know what our why is? It can be a challenge to unearth it. How do we do that? Now I'm going to borrow something from the world of automotive manufacturing. Way back when Toyota was perfecting the Toyota production system, or TPS for short, they came up with a method that they called the 5 whys. The developer of TPS, Taiichi Ohno, said, "The basis of Toyota's scientific approach is to ask why 5 times whenever we find a problem. By repeating why 5 times, the nature of the problem as well as its solution becomes clear." To illustrate, let's say a factory worker stops the line at the local Toyota plant. The manager runs over to investigate and ask what's going on. Why has the line stopped? The worker says, "I dropped a bolt into the door pillar and it's going to cause an unacceptable rattle." The manager asks a second time, "Why did you drop the bolt?" The worker says, "I was falling behind and the bolt slipped out of my hand." The manager asks a third time, "Why were you falling behind?" The worker says, "My knees were getting sore and the pain slowed me down." The manager asks a fourth time, "Why are your knees sore?" The worker says, "Each time I install this component, I have to crawl into the passenger compartment, and after hours of this, my knees get sore." At this point, the manager, maybe he asks why a fifth time, or maybe in our example here, he recognizes that his worker could really just use a pair of knee pads. So he goes to get a pair of knee pads and solve the problem. What he's really doing is getting to the root of the issue. In our case, we're not solving a problem as much as we're getting to the root of our intrinsic motivation. If we depend on external factors to motivate us, our motivation is not going to last. We have to anchor our motivation to what's important to us personally. So let's illustrate this. I had a client come and begin this process, and I asked him, "Why do you want to make these changes? Why now?" His first response was a fairly common one. "Man, my wife wants me to lose weight." "Why is that important?" I asked. "Well, we went to the doctor, and the doctor said I should probably lose some weight, and now my wife's kind of getting after me about that." "And why is it important to heed your doctor's advice?" "Well, I'm tired all the time. I want to, travel and have fun with my wife, and I want to see my kids grow up and graduate and get married. I'm afraid that my being overweight is having a negative impact on the way that I show up for my family." Now we're getting down to it. So I asked him, "Why is the way you show up for your family important to you?" "I feel like a spectator in my own life," he says. "Like life is just passing me by. My kids, my wife, my work, everything, and I'm just watching it slip away." "And why is it important that you not let it slip away?" And he got quiet. He said, "My youngest son is a freshman in high school. He plays football, and he wants me to be involved. And I want to be involved. I want to volunteer and support the team. And I want to go to the park and throw a ball with my son and play with him and his friends. And I want to model that for him. But right now I get winded when I bend down to tie my shoes. I know I only have a couple of years left with him, and I don't want this to be the version of me he remembers when he leaves home." Now that's a why. There's an exercise I do with my clients. I call it the note card exercise. It's not fancy. Basically, you take what I just read, your version, not this version, and you write it down on a note card. Crystallize your thoughts, distill them down to their essence, and scratch them out the tip of a pencil. And I do mean write it down. Note card, notepad, Post-it note, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that your handwriting ends up on a piece of paper that you can revisit later as many times as you need to. And here's why. I had another client that I gave this exercise to. The next week he came back and he said, Dave, I did it. I wrote it down. And he read it to me over the phone and it was great. Then over the course of the next 5 minutes, the air kind of went out of the conversation and I could tell that he was battling some discouragement. And at one point he sighed and he said, sometimes I don't even know why I'm doing this. And I paused. I didn't say anything. And then suddenly he says, yes, I do. And I could hear rustling on the other end of the phone. And I could tell that he was pulling out his note card that he had just put away and he was revisiting it right there. That's how quickly our motivation can evaporate even when we do know our why. That's why it has to be written down in your hand and kept somewhere where you can reference it regularly. Once it is outside of your brainstorm, it is clear, it's tangible, it is a solid, separate thing. It becomes an anchor you can hold on to, a force you can harness to take you where you want to go, a North Star to light your way and guide your steps. It becomes the means by which you become accountable to yourself, and that is what we want. My clients are not accountable to me. When people work with me, I equip them with the tools, resources, and guidance they need to create the future that they say they want. Yes, I check in with them on the regular, but at the end of the day, the one you're accountable to is the one staring back at you in the bathroom mirror. And clarifying and documenting your why is the cornerstone of that process. Friedrich Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how." I promise, if you do the work, this work especially, there's not much you can't accomplish. I hope this is helpful. This is the kind of thing that I work on with my clients. If working with me on your health goals is something you'd like to explore, visit my website, mycoachdave.net, and click Explore.